Bon, ben,
So good evening, everyone. We're going to start the meeting. It's 5:30. So to start off the agenda, we have a presentation on the results of the survey on volunteering with community organizations. Madame Cormier is going to be giving us the presentation. Good evening, members of council and the guests behind me. We wanted to have a survey because there was a survey in 2014 with citizens, and we were talking about volunteering. 34% of the people were doing volunteering in Dieppe, so we wanted to make a survey with our community organizations. So this is what we're going to be presenting tonight, is the result of that survey that was done with our organizations. We'll give you the objectives of the survey, the groups that were consulted, the services offered by the city, the language of communication, and then there'll be questions and comments. So we're going to start off now. The objectives of the survey, basically to have a 5-year picture of our organizations. They change. They have terms of 2 years, 3 years. So we figured it was a good idea to do 5 years. And also there was a specific theme, community theme in our strategic plan, 2013-2016. And there were 2 strategies. One of them was to the estimated percentage of the residents who do volunteering, and also the promotion of francophonie, the Acadian culture and the heritage. The other thing that we wanted to see also was to make sure that there were improvements to the volunteering. The groups that were consulted, there were 53 groups out of the 70 associations that we have here, and which represent 100 persons. 28 of these consulted groups also have subcommittees, meaning it's not just 100 people that were consulted. Out of 3,200 people who do volunteering in these organizations, the 53 that we talked about, so 2,600 of these volunteers are residents of Dieppe, and 600 are non-residents. So out of 53 groups, we have 2,600 residents. We also realized that there was more than 50% of these volunteers who do more than 500 hours of volunteering per year. So Dieppe is really has a lot of volunteers, and they are often asked to volunteer with other partners, and so it's a nice thing to have. Services that are offered and that we have to keep up development of volunteering. It's professional training 4 times a year, and 34 out of the 53 of the organizations really appreciate this training. In other words, it means that they participate. There are 4 different trainings. We also have an information letter that's sent off 4 times a year, and 39 out of the 53 organizations really appreciate this newsletter. And so all types of news that we want to send to them, they send them to the organizations, and they know the organizations that they're going to receive them 4 times a year. So that works pretty well. The services that are offered to the volunteers are municipal policies that are given to the organizations, whether to, they have different services, rebates, accreditation. So there's the Dieppe Mag. Each time Dieppe Mag comes out, is issued, there's an article or something added to them that they can find in there. There's also the city website. 11 out of 53 have already used the job postings. There's some people who are organizations who are looking for volunteers, so that's 11 out of the 53 organizations have used the job postings. And we also like to have evenings to honor our volunteers. That's in April. This is the next one will be on the 14th of April. That's another service that is offered. It's kind of to reward our volunteers. The language of communication. organizations who use the French language as the first language of communication for the emails. It's 39 out of 53. Social media, it's 23 organizations out of 53. And during their meetings, 40 organizations out of the 53 for their board meetings. And then there are 15 out of 33 organizations who offer training in French using the French language because so that's what we wanted to give you tonight. It's short, but it's just to talk about the volunteers and the organizations and the services that are offered by the city. So if there are any questions or comments. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. 53 out of the 70 groups were surveyed on the volunteering. Yes, we had face-to-face meetings. The 17 organizations who were not, which were not consulted, they didn't find it necessary, or we weren't able to contact them, or maybe they're not a big organizations. The 53 organizations, we just wanted to make sure we had those because they're pretty important organizations. All right, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My first question was the same type as the colleagues. When you mentioned the language of communication, did they explain to you if they maybe needed help to make sure that the French language was more present than it actually is now? Translation of documents, also translation, and also have help with communication. So we're going to see the next steps possible, and we'll come up with a plan that we'll present to you. There's another item that you mentioned. It was a training that you can offer. There were groups that were not taking advantage of this training. Did you have any indication as to why? It's often because they don't have the time or they don't feel that they need it. They're not very major reasons, but sometimes we send the information to the president or to the secretary, and sometimes it doesn't reach the board, so they don't know about it. But more and more now are availing themselves of the training. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Mme. Cormier? Seeing none. Thank you for the presentation. It's interesting to see the number of volunteers that we have in the city. We know that it's a great asset for the city of this. So I'll take this opportunity to thank all these volunteers. Thank you. Now we go to the update of the advisory committees of Dieppe. First of all, the Advisory Committee on Accessibility, Mr. Beliveau. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We're going to be having our next meeting. We're working with the Professor Levesque from Mount Allison University, who gave us some information on a study that he did with his students. We'd asked him for more or other information, specifically types of models that would be possible for delivery in our region. So we're waiting for his presence to get the information and the results of the research that they've done. There will be some very interesting information that will be we'll be able to use them because the information will be there concerning what we can offer today. I can say that we've, as a council, studied these types of things over the past. So the meeting is scheduled for March. We'll be able to tell you about this because he'll give us their report in its entirety. That's all for tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Belleville. Advisory Committee on Equality of Chances Between Men and Women. There hasn't been a meeting of this committee. There'll be one scheduled for next week. But I must say that we found a new member for the committee, and we'll give you his name once it will have gone through the meeting of council. So that's about all I can say for it tonight. Advisory Committee on Environment. Mr. Brideau, I believe. Nothing is going on right now. Since the beginning of the summer 2015, we've tried to get all the people together. Basically trying to get a quorum. It hasn't worked. We sent out notices and nothing has worked. And the mayor had decided to take charge of that committee because he wanted it to go forward. But because of what happened afterwards, he took a contract outside. He was no longer available. So I told the mayor during the holidays that I would try to make this committee move again, and we're going to try to sit with Marc and Luc Richard to see what worked, what did not work, and basically what we could do to change the situation. It's an advisory committee, and people who are members of the committee are really important. They're interested people, but they seem to be something I don't know how to explain. I think people wanted to be more proactive. The mandate of the advisory council is advisory, but it's like we're a little bit on a balancing act. We don't know. There might be something, a way of changing the thing to maybe bring it back to council so that we can maybe eliminate the word advisory so that we can be more proactive and so that people can bring something to it. I don't want to name any names tonight, but people who sit there are very, very interested, and they're really engaged with the environment, the green aspects. Good suggestions have been put forth concerning different aspects. For example, one I remember right now is I think it's a law on trees, on the protection of trees. There's another term that's coming to mind, but I don't remember it now. But it's something that we'd like to work on to see what could be done to protect the trees. A little bit like what happened in Moncton when they wanted to bring down a couple of trees, and somebody from the committee said that, okay, if we want to protect these trees in the future, maybe we should have a regulation or a bylaw of some sort to be able to protect these trees. So this is the thing that's come up at the committee. So if I may, I know we don't have that much time before the end of our term, but I'd like to sit down with Marc by the end of February to see if we can't get something going, to get the committee going again, so that at least the new council will be able to work again. Anyway, this is what we're going to be trying to do. Thank you. Advisory Committee on Francophonie, Madame Dallaire. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. On the Committee of the Francophonie, our last meeting was before the last meeting of strategies and policies, public policies of the Council. So our next meeting is on the 15th of March, and following that meeting, we'll probably have updates. But following context of Mr. Brideau for advisory committees, because I sat at the committee that reviewed all the advisory committees of the municipality. At the time, the recommendation had been that they be advisory committees rather than active committees. It was in order that municipal council be involved in the decisions and the investments. And that is why we have a committee who cannot use funds and engage funds without council being aware of what's going on in the community. That is the reason we recommended having advisory committees. So there are committees that are more based on action, but they're still committees of council, and they report directly to municipal staff, but they don't have the same power as the advisory committees. They have more of an indirect impact. But if council is in agreement, then maybe we could look into it. But it's because council wants to have a more direct input, either that or so that it could be sent to staff, or they could have maybe a not-for-profit organizations, because it's a question of working with funds, municipal funds. Thank you for the details, Madame Dallaire. I forgot to ask earlier if you had any questions for the other members of council who have made reports on the committee. So there are none. Okay. It's a good place to bring forth this subject. It's not pertaining to the committees directly, but it's maybe something that I wanted to recommend to council. I think it's out of order. Unless we can add it to the agenda if everyone is in agreement. If it doesn't pertain to the committees, then it wouldn't be receivable. The next item is the update on the Governance Committee on Public Transport. Mr. Cormier. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would like to thank Council for having voted $10,000 to work on the affordable passes, a program which should start fairly early in the year in order for us to be able to evaluate the impact on citizens this prior to the end of the year, and to see if it would be a good idea to do this again next year. But at least it's a beginning for us. I would also like to thank, or I would like to mention to our citizens that following the pressure by the Council of Dieppe, the Governance Committee of Kodiak asked drivers and asked them if they were interested in taking some courses in French, and I'm happy to say that 10 drivers registered to take classes in French to improve their linguistics competencies in French. Also, Kodiak Transpo, we received a report that was submitted by staff of Kodiak Transpo on the possibility of purchasing smaller buses in the 3 communities. And I believe that the Municipal Council of Dieppe will be getting a presentation shortly on what the staff thinks of these little buses. And finally, Wednesday at noon, there'll be the meeting of Kodiak Transport here in Dieppe, and I'd like to mention that it is open to the public. And it's at noon this Wednesday, the 17th, the 18th, here, Wednesday, 18th, here in Dieppe Municipal Council at noon. And that's all for me. Okay, thank you, Councillor Cormier. Are there any questions for Councillor Cormier? So, in that case, the meeting is over, and we will go on in the other room to discuss the item to be discussed. Thank you. We'll see you on the other side of the doors.